A clock ticked inside the hospital room, but time no longer felt like it belonged to anyone. It was running out, and for once, the man who controlled everything couldn't stop it. Not money, not power, not fear. The hospital corridor smelled like sterile rain. Alina stood beside Myra's bed, watching the monitor blink like a fragile heartbeat, trying to convince the world it still mattered. The bracelet on Myra's wrist caught the light. Small, simple, but Alina froze when she saw it again. Not new, not hospital issued, old, familiar in a way that made her stomach tighten. A memory tried to surface, but she pushed it away. Not now, not again. Across the glass wall, the boss stood still. For the first time in his life, he was not surrounded by control. No chandeliers, no politicians, no silence forced by fear. Just machines deciding whether a child would live. And that terrified him more than any gun ever had. He looked at the clock on the wall. Each second felt louder than the last. Tick, 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 like judgment. A doctor approached cautiously. "Sir, we've begun emergency treatment protocols, but we need authorization for the specialized facility abroad." The boss didn't hesitate. "Done. Sir, it will cost. I don't care." A pause. The doctor blinked. Even in his world, that kind of answer was rare, because people like him always cared about cost, about reputation, about control. But not now, not here. Alina stepped into the hallway suddenly. No, the word cut through everything. Even the machines seemed to hesitate. The boss turned slowly. Their eyes met. Two people standing on opposite sides of the same child. "You don't get to decide alone," Alina said. Her voice wasn't loud. It didn't need to be. The weight behind it was enough. The boss studied her for a long moment, then spoke quietly. "I already lost her once." A pause. "And I will not lose her again." Alina's expression tightened. "That's not how life works." A beat. "You don't undo abandonment with airplanes and hospitals." Silence dropped between them, heavy, unmoving. Inside the room, Myra shifted slightly. Her voice came soft. "Mommy, I feel like I'm in a dream where everyone is scared." Alina rushed back to her side, brushing her hair gently. "You're safe." The words were automatic, but they no longer felt fully true, because safety now had conditions, and conditions meant control. The boss stepped closer to the glass, watching her, not the child of power, not the heir, just a child, and something unfamiliar tightened in his chest. Not strategy, not calculation, something worse, responsibility. A sudden interruption broke the silence. A guard entered quickly. "Sir, the families involved in the falsified records are in custody." The boss didn't turn. "Bring them." Alina stepped forward immediately. "No." Everyone froze again. Even the guard hesitated. The boss finally looked at her. "Explain." Alina's voice sharpened. "This is not justice." A pause. This is revenge disguised as correction. Her eyes flicked toward Myra. She doesn't need blood debts paid in front of her. A silence followed, the kind that forces truth to rise whether it wants to or not. For a moment, the boss said nothing. Then, 10 years, he said quietly. One decision stolen from me. His voice hardened slightly. Someone must answer for that. Alina didn't flinch. You're not asking for truth. A step closer. You're asking for control over pain. That sentence landed deeper than expected. Even his men shifted uncomfortably. Inside the room, Myra suddenly reached for her bracelet, turning it in her small fingers. Mommy, this keeps getting tight sometimes. Alina looked down. Her breath stopped. The bracelet, not hospital issued, not random. Memory struck her hard now. A jewelry shop. Years ago. Rain outside. A man holding something small in his hand. Choosing it without understanding why. Buying it without knowing who it was for. Alina's face went pale. No, she whispered. The boss noticed instantly. What is it? Alina didn't answer, because truth had just started assembling itself, piece by piece. Too late to stop. The doctor interrupted again, urgently. Sir, we need immediate approval for the experimental treatment cycle. If we delay, he stopped, because the boss had already moved. Not toward paperwork, not toward authority, toward the machine. He placed his hand on the glass near Myra. Like a barrier, he wished could become nothing. I will fund everything, he said. His voice was lower now. Less command, more confession. If I have to dismantle every asset I own, I will. A pause. Nothing matters more than this. Alina watched him, carefully, searching for manipulation, but found something worse. Sincerity. And sincerity from men like him is dangerous, because it changes the rules of resistance. A week passed in fragments. Hospitals, flights, private medical teams flown from 3 countries. The empire the world feared began bleeding quietly. Assets sold, accounts emptied, board members panicking. But the boss didn't stop, because every report ended the same way. Stable improvement, not cure, but hope. Alina watched from the hospital room as strangers treated her daughter like she mattered. It unsettled her more than neglect ever did, because care without trust feels like invasion. One night, Myra asked softly, Mommy, is he staying? Alina hesitated, then answered carefully, I don't know, a pause, but he's trying. Myra smiled faintly. That's new. Outside the glass, the boss heard every word, and something inside him shifted again. He wasn't just fighting illness anymore. He was fighting distance. Years of it. Days later, the doctors delivered the change. Condition is stabilizing. Not cured, but pulled back from the edge. Alina closed her eyes for the first time without fear cutting through it. The boss didn't celebrate. He simply exhaled, as if he had been holding his breath for years. But healing does not erase history. It only pauses consequences. That evening, Alina stood near the window, the bracelet in her hand now. She finally understood. She turned slowly toward him. "You bought this?" The boss frowned slightly. "What?" Alina held it up. "This bracelet." A pause. "You bought it 10 years ago." Silence expanded. The boss stepped closer. "What are you saying?" Alina's voice trembled now. "You didn't just abandon us." Her eyes filled, but did not break. "You were already connected before you knew." The implication hit harder than accusation, because it meant fate had been involved long before choice. The boss stared at the bracelet. For the first time, uncertainty entered his expression. Not fear, not doubt, recognition of something missing in his memory. A blank space where truth should have been. Alina's voice lowered. "She didn't just inherit your name." A pause. "She inherited your history." A beat. "And someone erased part of it." The room went silent. Even the machines seemed distant now. The boss finally spoke. "Who?" Alina shook her head slowly. "I don't know." A pause. "But I think someone made sure you would never know her." The boss turned toward the window. Outside, birds flew across the evening sky. Free, uncontrolled, unowned. Something inside him tightened. Not anger, direction. Months later, the hospital doors opened differently. Not urgently, not desperately, but gently. Myra walked out holding Alina's hand. Alive, weaker, but present. Outside, a car waited. Not black, not armored, simple. For the first time, human. The boss stood beside it, waiting, not commanding, just present. Myra ran toward him slowly, careful steps, still healing. She stopped in front of him, looked up and smiled. "Hi, Daddy." No hesitation this time, no confusion, just recognition. Alina watched from behind, still guarded, still unsure. But something in her posture softened. Not forgiveness, not yet, but possibility. The boss knelt slightly, for the first time in his life. Equal height, no distance, only silence between them. Myra reached out and touched his hand. The bracelet on her wrist caught the light again. The same light from years ago, from a decision he never understood. He didn't speak. Neither did Alina, because some moments are too fragile for language. A flock of birds rose suddenly in the distance, breaking the sky into motion. Myra looked up and laughed softly. "They're free," she said. Alina nodded. Yes, the boss watched them, quietly, as if learning something he had forgotten how to feel. And for the first time in 10 years, the past did not feel like a prison. It felt like something that could finally be lived through. But as they walked forward together, the bracelet tightened slightly on Myra's wrist again. Just enough for Alina to notice. Just enough for the boss to pause. Just enough to remind them. The story of what happened 10 years ago was still not complete. And someone had been waiting for this reunion all along.